The vultures circling overhead were the first sign that something was wrong in the desert. And Isaac Palmer knew from 15 years of riding through Arizona territory that where vultures gathered, death was waiting below. It was June of 1884, and the sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked earth between Red Cloud and the Mexican border. Isaac had been tracking a string of stolen horses for 3 days, his canteen running low and his patience even lower. The vultures swooped in lazy circles about a quarter-mile east of the trail, their shadows dancing across the sand like dark omens. He pulled his hat lower against the glare and urged his mare, Copper, toward the birds. As he drew closer, the vultures scattered reluctantly, their harsh cries cutting through the desert silence. What Isaac saw next made him dismount so fast he nearly stumbled. A human head protruded from the sand, long dark hair matted with dirt and blood, skin burned red from the sun. A woman. She was buried up to her neck, left to die in the most cruel way imaginable. Isaac hit his knees beside her, his shadow falling across her face. Her eyes fluttered open, barely focused, the blue-green color startling against her sun-ravaged skin. She looked young, maybe 23 or 24, though it was hard to tell through the damage the desert had done. "Hold on," Isaac said, already digging with his hands around her shoulders. "I am going to get you out." Her cracked lips moved and he leaned closer to hear. "Too late," she whispered, her voice like sandpaper. "They will come back. Run." "Not happening," Isaac said firmly. He dug faster, the hot sand burning his hands. "Who did this to you?" "The Garrett brothers. I saw them murder a family, 3 children." Her eyes filled with tears that her dehydrated body could not produce. "If you stay, they will kill you too. Please, just go." Isaac kept digging, his jaw set. The sand had been packed deliberately around her, making the work slower than he wanted. "How long have you been here?" "Since yesterday morning. They are coming back at sunset to watch me die." She coughed, and Isaac could see the strain it put on her body. "Please, I am already gone. Save yourself." "I've heard the Garrett brothers are cowards who prey on the weak," Isaac said, working his way down to her chest now. "I am neither weak nor running." "Why?" she asked, genuine confusion in her fading voice. "You do not know me." Isaac paused, meeting her eyes directly. "Because nobody deserves this, and those words you just spoke about saving myself. They told me everything I need to know about who you are. You are worth saving." Something shifted in her expression, a flicker of hope fighting through the resignation. "My name is Olivia Kane." "Isaac Palmer," he replied, digging deeper. "And you are not dying today, Olivia Kane. I promise you that." It took another 20 minutes of relentless digging before he could pull her free. Her body was covered in bruises and cuts, her dress torn and filthy. She collapsed against him, unable to stand, and he carried her to the shade of a nearby outcropping of rocks. He gave her small sips of water from his canteen, knowing too much at once would make her sick. "Easy now," he said softly. "Just a little at a time." Olivia's hands shook as she held the canteen, and Isaac had to help steady it. After a few sips, she leaned back against the rock, exhausted. "You really should go. The Garrett brothers, there are 4 of them. Cole, Wade, Marcus, and the youngest, Jimmy, they are all killers." "Tell me what happened," Isaac said, checking her over for serious injuries. She had a deep cut on her arm that needed tending, and the sun damage was severe, but nothing seemed immediately life-threatening if he could get her cooled down and hydrated. Olivia closed her eyes, and for a moment, Isaac thought she had passed out. Then she spoke, her voice stronger now with the water in her system. "I was riding from Tucson to Red Cloud to meet my aunt. I am supposed to help her run a boarding house. I saw smoke and went to investigate, thinking maybe someone needed help." She paused, swallowing hard. "It was a homestead. Small place. The family was outside. The father was already dead and the mother was trying to protect 3 children, all under 10 years old. The Garrett brothers were laughing. I tried to ride for help, but they saw me. They caught you, Isaac said quietly. Wade Garrett shot my horse out from under me. I hit my head when I fell. When I woke up, they were burying me. Cole said they would come back at sunset with whiskey and watch me die as entertainment. He said the vultures would do most of their work for them. Anger burned hot in Isaac's chest, but he kept his voice calm. Where is this homestead? Maybe 2 miles southwest of here. But Isaac, you cannot fight 4 men alone. We need to get to Red Cloud, tell the sheriff. Isaac studied her face, seeing the strength there beneath the trauma. The sheriff in Red Cloud is Tom Baker. He is a good man, but he is also 3 hours away by hard riding. The Garrett brothers will be here in less than 2. We cannot outrun them, not with you in this condition and only 1 horse. Then what do we do? Olivia asked, fear creeping back into her voice. We turn this around on them, Isaac said. He helped her to a more comfortable position, then walked back to Copper and retrieved his rifle and saddlebags. They think you are helpless and alone. They are not expecting company, and they sure as hell are not expecting someone who is ready for them. Olivia watched him check his weapons with practiced efficiency. You are going to ambush them. I prefer to think of it as giving them the same fair chance they gave that family, and you. Isaac's voice was hard now, the easy warmth gone. I have tracked men like the Garretts before. They are bold when their victims cannot fight back, but they fold quick when facing someone who can shoot straight. You were a lawman, Olivia said. It was not a question. Was. For about 5 years. Over in New Mexico territory. It did not suit me in the end, all the politics and compromise. Out here, things are simpler. Right and wrong are clearer. He came back to sit beside her. Can you shoot? My father taught me, but I have not held a gun in 2 years, not since he died. Isaac pulled a small revolver from his boot and handed it to her. It is loaded, 6 shots. You remember how to use it. Olivia's hands were steadier now as she took the gun, checking the cylinder like her father must have taught her. I remember. Good. I am going to position you here where you have good cover. If things go wrong, you shoot anyone who comes close that is not me. Understand? And if they kill you, then you wait until dark and ride Copper to Red Cloud. She knows the way. You tell Tom Baker everything and he will get a posse together. The Garretts have a ranch about 15 miles south of here. That is where they will run when they realize things have gone bad. Olivia reached out and grabbed Isaac's wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Do not die for me. We just met. You do not owe me your life. Isaac looked at her hand on his wrist, then met her eyes. In the fading afternoon light, they were the color of desert sage after rain, and something in them made his heart beat differently. Maybe not. But I owe it to myself to be the kind of man who does not walk away when he can make a difference. He gently removed her hand and moved to set up his ambush. The sun was descending toward the horizon, painting the desert in shades of orange and gold. Isaac found a position about 30 yards from where Olivia was buried to her neck, using a cluster of rocks and desert scrub for cover. From here, he had a clear line of sight to her and the surrounding area. The waiting was always the hardest part. Isaac watched Olivia from his position, saw her fighting to stay alert despite her exhaustion. She held the revolver ready, and he admired her courage. Most women he knew would be hysterical after what she had been through. Hell, most men would be. The sun touched the horizon when Isaac heard them coming. Rough voices carrying across the desert, laughing and joking. The Garrett brothers rode in casually, passing a bottle between them. Isaac counted them as they appeared, 4 men, just like Olivia said. They were all cut from the same mean cloth, hard-faced and armed to the teeth. Cole Garrett, the oldest, dismounted first. He was tall and rangy with a scar across his chin. "Well, well, still alive I see. You are a tough one, I will give you that." The brothers spread out in a loose semicircle around where they thought Olivia still was. Wade, shorter but broader than Cole, took a long pull from the whiskey bottle. "Bet she does not last another hour. Look at that sun damage." Marcus and Jimmy, clearly younger versions of their brothers, just watched with cruel amusement. Jimmy could not have been more than 20, but his eyes held the same coldness as the others. Cole walked closer to the spot, squinting. "Hold on, something is different." That was when they saw it, the disturbed sand, the obvious signs of digging. "Someone dug her out," Wade said, his hand dropping to his gun. Isaac stood up from his cover, his rifle trained on Cole. "That would be me." 4 heads snapped toward him, hands moving toward weapons. "Do not," Isaac said calmly. "You all are covered. The woman you tried to kill is alive and armed. You so much as twitch wrong and I will drop all 4 of you before you clear leather." Cole's face twisted with rage. "You got no idea what you just walked into, mister." "I know exactly what I walked into. 4 killers who murdered a family and tried to kill a witness. I know you are the Garrett brothers, and I know you have been running roughshod over this territory for 2 years. I also know your run ends today." Wade spat in the sand. "Big talk for one man. One man who has you dead to rights. Now, I am going to give you more of a choice than you gave that family or Miss Kane here. You can drop your guns and ride to Red Cloud with me, face a judge like civilized people. Or you can draw and I will kill you where you stand. Either way works for me." The brothers exchanged glances, communicating without words the way people who had lived and fought together could. Isaac saw the decision in their eyes, a heartbeat before they moved. Cole and Wade went for their guns. Marcus dove for cover. Jimmy hesitated, caught between flight and fight. Isaac shot Cole first, the rifle shot echoing across the desert. Cole went down hard, grabbing his shoulder. Isaac worked the lever and shot Wade in the leg before he could bring his weapon to bear. Marcus got a shot off that kicked up sand near Isaac's feet, but Isaac's return fire caught him in the chest. He dropped behind his horse, not moving. Jimmy stood frozen, his gun half drawn, staring at his fallen brothers. "Do not," Isaac said, his rifle aimed at the young man's chest. "It is over." Tears streamed down Jimmy's face, not of grief but of rage. "You killed Marcus. He was trying to kill me. Drop the gun, Jimmy." For a long moment, the outcome hung in the balance. Then Jimmy let his revolver fall to the sand and raised his hands. "We should have killed you when we had the chance." "You never had a chance," Isaac said. He moved forward carefully, kicking away the fallen weapons. Cole was cursing and holding his bleeding shoulder. Wade was pale but alive, both hands pressed to his thigh. Marcus lay still, blood soaking the sand beneath him. Olivia emerged from her cover, moving slowly but keeping the revolver trained on the brothers. Her face was set in hard lines. "You left me to die." Cole glared at her. "You should have minded your own business." "3 children," Olivia said, her voice breaking. "They were children and you shot them like dogs." "They were on land we wanted," Wade said through gritted teeth. "Wrong place, wrong time." Isaac moved to Olivia's side, worried she might shoot them out of anger. But she lowered the gun, though her hand shook. "They deserve to hang," she said quietly. "They will," Isaac promised. He quickly bound Cole and Wade's wounds, then tied all 3 surviving brothers together with rope from his saddle. Marcus he wrapped in a blanket, securing the body across the dead man's horse. The ride to Red Cloud took most of the night. Isaac set a slow pace, accommodating Olivia's condition and the prisoner's injuries. Olivia rode behind him on Copper, her arms around his waist, occasionally dozing against his back from exhaustion. Around midnight, they stopped to rest. Isaac helped Olivia down and she nearly collapsed. He caught her, steadying her against him. "Easy, you need to rest." "I am fine," she said, but her body told a different story. "You are anything but fine. You have been buried in the desert for a day and a half, beaten and left to die. You are allowed to not be fine." Isaac spread out his bedroll near the small fire he built. "Lie down, I will keep watch." Olivia did not argue this time. She lay down gratefully and Isaac covered her with his coat. The night was cold, the temperature dropping fast the way it always did in the desert. He sat between her and the prisoners, his rifle across his lap, and watched the stars wheel overhead. "Isaac." Olivia's voice came soft in the darkness. "Yes, thank you, for not running, for staying. Get some sleep, Olivia. Those words I said about saving yourself, I meant them. I thought I was dead already, but you made me want to live again. In just those few minutes of digging, you gave me hope." She paused. "I have never met anyone like you." Isaac turned to look at her. In the firelight, despite the damage and the dirt, he could see the beauty beneath. But more than that, he could see the strength, the kindness that made her think of his safety even as she was dying. "I have never met anyone like you either," he admitted. She smiled, just a little, and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. They reached Red Cloud just after dawn. The town was starting to wake up, shopkeepers opening their doors, the smell of breakfast cooking drifting from the hotel. People stopped and stared as Isaac rode down the main street with his strange procession. A beaten woman clinging to his back, 3 bloodied prisoners tied to their horses, and a body wrapped in a blanket. Sheriff Tom Baker came out of his office, coffee cup in hand, and nearly dropped it when he saw them. Tom was in his 50s, gray-haired and weathered, but still sharp. "Isaac Palmer, what in the hell have you brought me?" The Garrett brothers, 3 alive, 1 dead. "They are wanted for the murder of the Henderson family yesterday, attempted murder of Miss Kane here, and probably a dozen other crimes I do not know about." Tom's eyes widened. "The Henderson family? I just got word about that this morning. Whole family slaughtered, even the children. We were about to form a posse. Miss Kane witnessed it. They tried to silence her." Isaac dismounted and helped Olivia down. She swayed on her feet and Tom rushed to support her other side. "Good Lord, what did they do to you?" Tom asked, taking in her appearance. "Buried her up to her neck in the desert and left her for the vultures," Isaac said flatly. Tom's face went dark with anger. "Get her to Doc Miller immediately. I will handle these animals." Isaac helped Olivia across the street to the doctor's office. Doc Miller was a small, efficient man who took one look at Olivia and immediately ushered her into his examination room. "Wait outside, Isaac. I will take care of her." Pacing the small waiting room, Isaac felt the tension of the past day catching up with him. He had not slept, and the brief gunfight had left him running on nerves. But more than physical exhaustion, he felt an unfamiliar anxiety about Olivia's condition. He barely knew her, yet the thought of something being seriously wrong made his chest tight. Doc Miller emerged an hour later, wiping his hands on a towel. "She is going to be fine. Severe dehydration, sun poisoning, cuts and bruises, but nothing permanently damaging. That woman is tough as nails. Most people would not have survived what she went through." Relief flooded through Isaac. "Can I see her? She is resting, but yes. Try to keep it brief, though. She needs sleep more than anything." Olivia was lying in a clean bed, her face washed and bandaged, wearing a borrowed nightgown. She looked impossibly young and vulnerable, but she smiled when she saw Isaac. "You look terrible." Isaac laughed despite himself. "You do not look so great yourself, liar. Doc Miller said I am beautiful under all this damage." Her smile faded. "The brothers, locked up. Tom sent word to the territorial marshal." They will stand trial for the Henderson murders and your attempted murder. With your testimony, they will hang." Olivia nodded, her eyes distant. "Those poor children. I keep seeing their faces." Isaac pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. "I know, those images do not go away easy. But you tried to help. You did the right thing and you survived to make sure they face justice. That matters. Because you found me." She reached out and took his hand, her grip weak but deliberate. "Isaac, I need you to understand something. When I told you to run, to save yourself, I was not trying to be noble. I genuinely believed I was already dead. But you did not give up. You fought for me when I had given up on myself. That kind of thing, it changes a person." Isaac felt something shift in his chest, like a door opening that he had kept locked for years. "You were worried about me getting killed by the Garretts. That is nobility in my book." "Maybe we are both noble fools then," Olivia said, a hint of amusement in her tired voice. "Maybe we are." Isaac stood, reluctant to leave but knowing she needed rest. "Your aunt, the one who runs the boarding house. I will go tell her you are here, that you need a few days to recover. Her name is Margaret Kane. The boarding house is on 3rd Street. Olivia squeezed his hand before letting go. "Will I see you again? Or do you need to get back to tracking those stolen horses, the horses?" Isaac had completely forgotten about them. "The horses can wait. I will be around." "Good," Olivia said softly, her eyes already drifting closed. "I would like that." Isaac found Margaret Kane's boarding house easily enough. It was a neat, well-maintained 2-story building with a welcoming front porch. Margaret herself answered the door, a sturdy woman in her 40s with the same blue-green eyes as Olivia. "Can I help you?" she asked, then took in his appearance, covered in dust and dried blood, clearly exhausted. "Are you all right?" "I am fine, madam. My name is Isaac Palmer. I am here about your niece, Olivia Kane." Margaret's face went white. "What happened? Is she hurt?" Isaac quickly explained the situation, downplaying the worst of it to avoid panic. When he finished, Margaret was already grabbing her shawl. "Take me to her right now." At the doctor's office, Margaret rushed to Olivia's bedside, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, my dear girl, I am so sorry. I should have sent someone to escort you from Tucson." Olivia, awake again, embraced her aunt. "It is not your fault. Nobody could have predicted this." Isaac stepped back, feeling like he was intruding on a private moment, but Margaret turned to him, her eyes red but fierce. "Mr. Palmer, Olivia told me what you did. You saved her life. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Margaret said firmly. "They would not have. Most men would have been too afraid of the Garrett brothers or too concerned with their own affairs to get involved. You risked your life for someone you did not know. That makes you a rare man indeed." Isaac felt uncomfortable with the praise. "I just did what needed doing." Margaret studied him with a knowing look. "Where are you staying?" "I was planning to camp outside town, or maybe rent a room at the hotel." "Nonsense. You will stay at my boarding house free of charge. It is the least I can do." "Madam, that is not necessary." "It is not negotiable," Margaret said with a smile. "Besides, you look like you are about to fall over. When is the last time you slept in a real bed?" Isaac could not actually remember. "It has been a while." "Then it is settled. Come along. Olivia needs rest, and so do you." Margaret's boarding house was comfortable and clean, with a room on the 2nd floor that overlooked the street. Isaac barely registered his surroundings before collapsing on the bed, asleep before his head fully hit the pillow. He woke to late afternoon sunlight and the smell of cooking food. His body ached from the previous day's exertion, but he felt more rested than he had in weeks. After washing up with the water basin in his room, he headed downstairs. Margaret was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She smiled when she saw him. "Better. Much. Thank you for this. Sit. Dinner will be ready soon." She poured him coffee, strong and hot. "I went to see Olivia again this afternoon. Doc Miller says she can come home tomorrow if she continues improving. That is good news." Margaret sat across from him, her expression serious. "She talked about you quite a bit. About how you refused to leave her, how you stood up to 4 armed men." Isaac shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what was right. My niece is very special to me, Mr. Palmer. She lost her parents 2 years ago to cholera. She has been adrift ever since, moving from place to place, never quite settling. I invited her here hoping she might find a new purpose, a fresh start." Margaret met his eyes directly. "In all that tragedy and grief, I have not seen her smile the way she did when talking about you." "We only just met," Isaac protested, though his heart was beating faster. "Sometimes that is all it takes, a moment, a connection." Margaret stood, returning to her cooking. "I am not suggesting anything improper, but I am saying that life is short and unpredictable, as Olivia learned yesterday. When something good comes along, when someone good comes along, it is worth paying attention to." Over the next few days, a routine developed. Isaac helped Sheriff Baker with the Garrett brothers' case, giving his statement and ensuring all the evidence was properly documented. The territorial marshal arrived and confirmed that the Garretts were wanted in 3 territories for various crimes. The trial was set for 2 weeks out. Olivia recovered quickly under Doc Miller's care, returning to Margaret's boarding house after 2 days. Isaac saw her often, ostensibly to discuss the upcoming trial, but both of them knew it was more than that. They would sit on Margaret's front porch in the evening, talking about everything and nothing. "Tell me about being a lawman," Olivia said one night. They were watching the sun set, painting the desert sky in brilliant colors. "Not much to tell. I wore a badge in Silver City for 5 years. Kept the peace, dealt with drunks and claim jumpers, the occasional gunfight. But the town council wanted me to look the other way when certain wealthy citizens broke the law. I refused, and they made my life difficult until I quit. You could have compromised, made your life easier. Could have. But then I would have to look at myself in the mirror every morning, knowing I was not the man I wanted to be." Isaac glanced at her. "Like you riding toward smoke when you could have kept going to safety. We are who we are." Olivia smiled. "Maybe that is why I feel so comfortable with you. We understand each other. Maybe." Isaac wanted to say more, wanted to tell her that he thought about her constantly, that he had never felt this pull toward someone before. But the words stuck in his throat, held back by a lifetime of caution and self-reliance. Olivia seemed to sense his struggle. She reached over and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "I am glad you found me, Isaac Palmer. Even though it was the worst day of my life, it also brought you into it. I am trying to find the balance in that." "The world is strange that way," Isaac agreed, his thumb rubbing gently across her knuckles. "Tragedy and grace all mixed together." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, until Margaret called them in for dinner. The trial of the Garrett brothers was a major event in Red Cloud. People came from surrounding towns and ranches to see justice done for the Henderson family. The courtroom was packed, standing room only, with the judge having to call for order multiple times. Olivia testified for over an hour, describing in clear, unwavering detail what she had witnessed. She spoke of the children crying for their mother, of Cole Garrett's cold laughter, of the way they had buried her with casual cruelty. By the time she finished, several jury members were visibly moved, and the spectators were murmuring angrily. Isaac testified next, corroborating Olivia's account and adding details about the ambush and arrests. The physical evidence was overwhelming. The grave they had buried Olivia in, still visible in the desert. The bodies of the Henderson family, buried in a mass grave near their burned homestead. Marcus Garrett's body, killed in the act of resisting arrest. The defense attorney, clearly doing his job under protest, could offer little. He tried to suggest that Olivia was mistaken, that perhaps she had been confused by her ordeal. But her testimony was too specific, too detailed, and too consistent with the physical evidence. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Guilty on all counts. Judge Harold Morrison, a stern man known for his fairness, sentenced all 3 surviving Garrett brothers to hang. "This was a crime of exceptional cruelty," he said from the bench. "You murdered innocent people, including children, for nothing more than greed. You attempted to kill a woman who sought to bring you to justice. This court finds you beyond redemption. May God have mercy on your souls, because this territory will not." The hanging was set for 1 week later. After the trial, Isaac found Olivia outside the courthouse, leaning against a post and looking drained. "You did well in there," he said. "I thought I would feel better hearing the sentence, but I just feel empty. Those children are still dead. That family is still gone. Justice does not erase what happened. It just makes sure it matters, that there are consequences." Isaac moved closer, lowering his voice. "You gave them that. You made their deaths mean something." Olivia looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Will you stay for the hanging, or do you need to move on?" Isaac had been asking himself the same question for days. He had no permanent ties, no reason to stay in Red Cloud beyond the woman standing in front of him, but that reason suddenly felt like the most important one he had ever had. "I will stay," he said simply. Relief washed over Olivia's face. "Good. I do not think I could watch them hang without you there. You do not have to watch at all. Nobody would blame you for staying away. I need to see it through, for the Hendersons and for myself." She straightened, some of her strength returning. "Besides, I am not going to let them see me hide. They tried to break me and they failed. I want them to know that." Isaac felt a surge of admiration for her courage. "Then I will be right beside you." The week passed quietly. Isaac took odd jobs around town, helping with repairs at the general store and breaking a few horses for the livery stable. He needed to keep busy, to avoid thinking too hard about what came after the hanging. Olivia was settling into life at the boarding house, helping Margaret with cooking and cleaning, slowly finding her rhythm in Red Cloud. They saw each other every day, sometimes just for a few minutes, sometimes for hours. The connection between them deepened, an understanding that went beyond words. Isaac found himself thinking about a future he had never seriously considered before. A home, a family, someone to share his life with, but he held back from saying anything definite. Olivia had been through trauma. She needed time to heal, to figure out what she wanted without the pressure of his feelings. At least, that is what he told himself. The truth was, he was afraid. Afraid of being vulnerable, afraid she might not feel the same way, afraid of losing the easy companionship they had found. Margaret, watching them dance around their feelings, finally lost patience. On the evening before the hanging, she cornered Isaac in the kitchen. "Are you going to tell her how you feel, or are you just going to mope around my house forever?" Isaac looked up from the coffee he was nursing. "I do not know what you mean." "Do not play dumb with me, Isaac Palmer. You are in love with my niece, and unless I am very much mistaken, she is in love with you, but both of you are too stubborn or scared to say it out loud. It is too soon. She has been through too much." "Life does not wait for perfect timing," Margaret said firmly. "That girl almost died in the desert. She knows better than most that tomorrow is not guaranteed. Tell her how you feel. And if she does not feel the same way, then at least you will know and you can both move on. But I have been watching you two for weeks now, and I see the way you look at each other. That is not nothing, Isaac. That is something rare and precious. Do not let fear steal it from you. That night, Isaac lay awake for hours, wrestling with Margaret's words. By the time dawn broke, he had made his decision. The hanging took place at 10 in the morning in the town square. A large crowd gathered, the mood somber but determined. The Garrett brothers were led to the gallows in chains, Cole and Wade defiant to the end, while Jimmy looked pale and terrified. Isaac stood with Olivia near the front of the crowd. She was dressed in black, her hand gripping his arm tightly. As the nooses were placed around the brothers' necks, she turned her face into Isaac's shoulder, unable to watch the final moment. The judge read the sentence one final time, then gave the signal. The trap doors opened with a heavy clunk. It was over quickly. The crowd began to disperse, conversation subdued. Olivia remained pressed against Isaac for a long moment before finally stepping back. Her face was pale but composed. "It is done. It is done," Isaac agreed. "How are you feeling?" "Like closing a book. The story was terrible, but now it is finished and I can put it away." She looked up at him. "Thank you for being here, for all of it." "Olivia, I need to talk to you properly, I mean, not here." Isaac glanced around at the lingering crowd. "Can we go somewhere private?" Something in his tone made her eyes widen slightly. "Of course. Margaret's boarding house is empty right now. She went to help Mrs. Chen with a quilting project." They walked back to the boarding house in silence, both nervous for different reasons. Once inside, Isaac led Olivia to the sitting room, then found himself at a loss for words. He had faced down armed criminals without breaking a sweat, but trying to express his feelings made him feel like an awkward boy. "Isaac, you are worrying me," Olivia said, sitting on the sofa. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong. Everything is right, and that is the problem." Or not the problem, but the complication. Isaac took a breath, forcing himself to slow down. "I am not good at this, talking about feelings. But Margaret told me last night that life does not wait for perfect timing, and she is right." Understanding dawned in Olivia's eyes. "Isaac, let me finish before I lose my nerve." He sat beside her, taking her hands in his. "When I found you in the desert, dying, you told me to save myself. You were more worried about a stranger living than about your own survival. That moment showed me who you are. Someone with a capacity for courage and selflessness that I have never seen before. And every day since, you have proven it again. The way you testified, facing down your attackers. The way you are rebuilding your life with strength and grace." Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "I am not as strong as you think. You are stronger. And somewhere in these past few weeks, I fell in love with that strength. I fell in love with your laugh, and the way you see the best in people, and how you take your coffee with too much sugar. I fell in love with you, Olivia Kane, and I do not know what to do about it except tell you and hope that maybe, possibly, you might feel something similar." Olivia let out a shaky laugh, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You beautiful fool. I have been in love with you since you refused to run from the Garrett brothers. Since you dug me out of that sand with your bare hands and promised I was not going to die. How could I not fall in love with you?" Relief and joy flooded through Isaac. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I was so afraid you would not feel the same way." "I was afraid too," Olivia admitted against his chest. "Afraid it was too soon, or that you were just being kind to a victim you rescued. Afraid that these feelings were not real, just trauma and gratitude mixed together." Isaac pulled back enough to look at her face. "And now I know they are real. This is real." She reached up and cupped his face. "I love you, Isaac Palmer. I want to build a life with you if you will have me." "If I will have you," Isaac laughed, incredulous. "Olivia, there is nothing I want more." He kissed her then, gentle and careful, mindful of everything she had been through. But Olivia kissed him back with an intensity that surprised him, her hands tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I am not fragile," Olivia said firmly. "What happened to me was terrible, but I survived. I am here alive and I want to live fully. With you. Then we will live fully," Isaac promised. Together, they spent the rest of the afternoon on the sofa, talking about the future. Isaac admitted he had saved most of his earnings from his lawman days and various jobs since. It was enough to buy a small ranch, maybe start a horse breeding operation. Olivia said she had some money from her parents' estate, not a fortune but enough to help. "We could stay near Red Cloud," Olivia suggested. "There is good land available north of town. And I would like to stay close to Margaret." "That sounds perfect," Isaac agreed. He hesitated, then added, "I should mention I am not always the easiest person to live with. I get quiet sometimes, lost in my head, and I have a tendency to take on other people's problems as my own." Olivia smiled. "I talk too much, especially when I am nervous. I am stubborn to a fault, and I cannot cook anything more complicated than beans and bacon without burning it. We sound like a disaster together, the best kind of disaster." She kissed him again, softer this time. "When should we get married?" Isaac blinked. "You want to marry me?" Was that not where this conversation was headed? Olivia looked amused. "Or were you planning to just court me indefinitely?" "I was planning to court you properly first. Take you to dinner, buy you flowers, do things the right way. We met because I was buried alive in the desert and you shot 3 men to save me. I think we can skip some of the traditional courtship steps." Olivia's expression grew serious. "I know what I want, Isaac. I have known since about the second day in this town, but if you need time—" "I do not need time," Isaac said quickly. "I just want to make sure you are certain that you are not just caught up in the emotion of everything that has happened." "I am certain," Olivia said firmly. "Are you?" Isaac thought about it, really examined his feelings. He had been alone for so long, convinced that his lifestyle was incompatible with marriage and family. But Olivia had changed everything. She was not some delicate flower who needed constant protection. She was strong and capable and brave. She would be a true partner, not a burden. "I am certain," he said. "Let us get married." When Margaret returned home that evening, she found them still on the sofa, holding hands and planning their future. She took one look at their faces and smiled knowingly. About time. The wedding took place 3 weeks later. It was a small ceremony at the church in Red Cloud, with Margaret, Sheriff Baker, Doc Miller, and a handful of other townsfolk in attendance. Olivia wore a simple white dress that Margaret helped her make, and Isaac wore his best suit, feeling awkward and nervous and happier than he had ever been. Reverend Thomas performed the ceremony, his voice carrying through the small church. Marriage is a partnership forged in trust and love. It is choosing every day to face life's challenges together rather than alone. Isaac and Olivia have already proven their commitment to each other in the most difficult circumstances. Now, they make that commitment official before God and this community. When it came time for the vows, Isaac's voice was steady. "I promise to stand by you, to protect you when you need it and to step back when you do not. I promise to listen, to support your dreams, and to build a life with you that honors what we have both survived." Olivia's voice was equally clear. "I promise to love you with everything I am. To trust you, to challenge you when you need it, and to be your shelter when the world is hard. I promise to face every tomorrow with you, grateful for every day we have together. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Thomas said with a warm smile. "Isaac, you may kiss your bride." Isaac did, and the small congregation erupted in applause. The reception was held at Margaret's boarding house with food and music and dancing. Sheriff Baker gave a toast that made everyone laugh, telling stories about Isaac's stubborn righteousness. Margaret cried happy tears and told Olivia how proud her parents would have been. As the sun set and the party wound down, Isaac and Olivia slipped away to the room that would be theirs until their ranch house was built. It was the same room Isaac had stayed in when he first came to town, but it felt different now, transformed by their shared future. "Mrs. Palmer," Isaac said, pulling Olivia close. "That has a nice sound to it." "It does," Olivia agreed, her arms around his neck. "Although I might keep Kane for business purposes. Olivia Kane Palmer. That way I honor both my family and my new one." "Whatever you want," Isaac said. "As long as you are mine and I am yours, the details do not matter." They made love that night with a tenderness born of genuine feeling and mutual respect. Afterward, lying in the darkness with Olivia's head on his chest, Isaac felt a peace he had never known before. For so long, he had been alone, moving from place to place without roots or ties. Now, suddenly, he had both. He had a home, a wife, a future. "What are you thinking about?" Olivia asked sleepily. "How different my life would be if I had not seen those vultures circling, if I had stayed on the trail instead of investigating." Olivia shivered. "I would be dead. And I would still be alone, not even knowing what I was missing." Isaac tightened his arms around her. "Those vultures saved both of us, in a way. Strange how life works. The worst thing that ever happened to me led directly to the best thing." Olivia tilted her head to look at him. "Do you believe in fate?" "I believe in choice. I chose to investigate. I chose to dig you out. I chose to fight the Garretts instead of running." Isaac kissed her forehead. "And I chose to love you. That was not fate. That was me deciding what kind of man I wanted to be." "I chose you too," Olivia said softly. "I chose to trust you, to open my heart even though I was scared. That was not fate either. That was bravery. We are a brave pair then." "The bravest," Olivia agreed, smiling against his skin. The next morning, they began the practical work of building their life together. Isaac had already scouted several properties north of Red Cloud, and he took Olivia to see them. They settled on 100 acres with good water access, rolling hills suitable for horses, and a view of the desert that took Olivia's breath away. "It is perfect," she said, standing on the slight rise where the house would go. "Can you imagine sitting on a porch right here, watching the sunset every night?" "I can," Isaac said, standing behind her with his arms around her waist. "And maybe watching our children play down by the creek." Olivia turned in his arms, her eyes bright. "You want children, if you do. I know that is a big step, and if you are not ready—" "I want them," Olivia said quickly. "I want everything with you, Isaac. The house, the ranch, the family, all of it." They bought the land that week, using their combined savings for the purchase and materials to build a house. Isaac did most of the construction himself, with help from Sheriff Baker and some of the other men in town. It was hard work, but satisfying, seeing the house take shape board by board. Olivia threw herself into preparing for their new life. She worked with Margaret to improve her cooking skills, learned the basics of horse care from the livery stable owner, and began ordering furniture and supplies from the catalogs that came through the general store. 3 months after their wedding, the ranch house was finished. It was not large, just 4 rooms and a porch, but it was solid and well built and theirs. Moving day was an adventure, with Margaret helping to pack and transport everything from the boarding house to the ranch. That first night in their new home, Isaac built a fire in the fireplace while Olivia unpacked the kitchen. They ate a simple dinner of stew and bread, sitting at their new table, and it felt like the most perfect meal Isaac had ever had. "This is really ours," Olivia said, looking around at the house. "We are really doing this." "Having second thoughts," Isaac asked, teasing. "Not even slightly, are you?" "No, this is exactly where I want to be." They fell into a routine over the following months. Isaac worked the ranch, building fences and corrals, buying their first horses to begin the breeding program. Olivia managed the house and finances, proved to be a natural with the horses, and started a small garden. It was hard work, but they were building something together, and that made every challenge worthwhile. 6 months into their marriage, Olivia confirmed what they had both suspected. She was pregnant. Isaac's reaction was a mixture of joy and terror. "A baby. We are going to have a baby." "We are," Olivia said, laughing at his expression. "You look like you are about to faint." "I might. This is huge. What if I am not a good father? What if I do something wrong?" Olivia took his hands, squeezing them reassuringly. "You are going to be a wonderful father. Look at everything you have already done, building this life for us. You are protective but not controlling, strong but gentle. Those are exactly the qualities our child will need." "Our child," Isaac repeated, letting the words sink in. Then he grinned, a wide, genuine smile that transformed his usually serious face. "We are going to have a child." He picked Olivia up and spun her around, making her laugh and protest that he would make her dizzy. But she was laughing too hard to be convincing, caught up in his joy. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Doc Miller checked on Olivia regularly, declaring her healthy and the baby strong. Margaret visited often, helping to prepare the nursery and sharing advice from her own experience raising children. The ranch prospered as well, with their horses gaining a reputation for quality throughout the territory. Olivia's belly grew through the winter months, and Isaac found himself constantly amazed by the physical reality of the life they had created. He would put his hand on her stomach and feel the baby kick, overwhelmed by the responsibility and privilege of it all. "You have a name preference?" Olivia asked one evening. They were sitting on the porch despite the cold, wrapped in blankets and watching the stars. "I have been thinking about that. If it is a boy, maybe Jacob, after my father. If it is a girl, Sarah or Emma." "I like those names. What about middle names?" "Henderson," Isaac said quietly. "Either Jacob Henderson Palmer or Sarah Henderson Palmer. To honor that family, the one whose deaths brought us together." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "That is beautiful, Isaac. They would be honored. They deserved better than they got. The least we can do is make sure they are remembered." The baby came in late April of 1885, after 16 hours of labor that left Isaac feeling helpless and terrified. Doc Miller and Margaret handled everything with calm competence while Isaac paced outside, listening to Olivia's cries and wishing he could take the pain for her. Finally, just as dawn was breaking, he heard the sound he had been waiting for, a baby's cry, strong and healthy. Margaret opened the door, her face radiant. "You have a son, Isaac, and Olivia is fine. Tired, but fine." Isaac rushed inside to find Olivia propped up in bed, exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She smiled when she saw him. "Come meet your son." Isaac approached cautiously as if the baby might break. When he looked down at the small face, red and wrinkled and perfect, something fundamental shifted in his heart. "He is beautiful. He has your chin," Olivia said. "And my eyes, I think, though it is hard to tell yet." "Jacob Henderson Palmer," Isaac said softly, gently touching his son's tiny hand. The baby's fingers curled around his, gripping with surprising strength. "Welcome to the world, Jacob." The first year of Jacob's life was a blur of sleepless nights, constant feedings, and overwhelming love. Isaac discovered reserves of patience he did not know he had, walking the floor with a crying baby at 3 in the morning, changing diapers, and learning to function on minimal sleep. The ranch continued to grow. Word of their quality horses spread, and buyers came from as far as California and Colorado. Isaac hired a young man named Peter Chen to help with the increasing workload, giving him and Olivia more time to focus on Jacob. Olivia proved to be a natural mother, patient and loving, but also practical. She refused to coddle Jacob unnecessarily, believing children needed to develop resilience. "The world is hard," she told Isaac. "Our job is not to shield him from every difficulty, but to teach him how to face challenges with courage and integrity." "Like his mother," Isaac said, pulling her close. "Like both his parents," Olivia corrected. When Jacob was 18 months old, Olivia became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was harder. She was sick more often, exhausted constantly, and Doc Miller monitored her closely. Isaac worried, remembering how close he had come to losing her before they even met. "I am fine," Olivia insisted, though she was pale and drawn. "Women have been doing this since the beginning of time. I can handle it." "You do not have to handle everything alone," Isaac said. "Let me help." "Let Margaret help." Reluctantly, Olivia agreed to take it easier. Margaret moved into the ranch for the last 2 months of the pregnancy, taking over most of the household duties. Isaac cut back his work hours, hiring Peter's younger brother to help with the ranch. The second baby, a girl they named Emma Henderson Palmer, arrived in March of 1887 after a mercifully shorter labor. She was smaller than Jacob had been, with a shock of dark hair and her mother's determined expression from the start. "She is going to be trouble," Margaret said affectionately, holding her new grandniece. "I can tell already." "Good," Olivia said weakly from the bed. "The world needs women who are willing to cause trouble for the right reasons." Isaac, holding Jacob while his son peered curiously at his new sister, could not stop smiling. His family was complete. 2 beautiful, healthy children. A wife he loved more every day. A successful ranch. It was more than he had ever dreamed possible. The years rolled by in a pattern of hard work and deep satisfaction. Jacob grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved working with the horses. Emma was indeed trouble, fearless and curious, constantly getting into scrapes that left Olivia torn between laughter and exasperation. The ranch prospered beyond their initial hopes. By 1890, Palmer Ranch was known throughout Arizona Territory as the premier source for quality horses. Isaac had to hire 3 additional hands to keep up with the work. They expanded the house, adding bedrooms and a proper office for Olivia to manage the increasingly complex finances. Red Cloud grew as well, evolving from a rough frontier town into a proper community with a school, a library, and even a small opera house. Olivia involved herself in community affairs, serving on the school board and helping to establish a fund for families in need. Isaac served occasionally as a deputy when Sheriff Baker needed assistance, though he never wanted to return to law enforcement full-time. One evening in the summer of 1891, Isaac and Olivia sat on their porch watching Jacob, now 6, teaching 5-year-old Emma how to rope a fence post. The sun was setting, painting the desert in the colors Isaac had come to think of as home. "You ever think about that day?" Olivia asked quietly. "The day you found me. Sometimes. Mostly I think about how easily it could have gone differently. If I had been an hour later, if I had not seen the vultures, if I had decided it was not my problem. But you did not decide that. You chose to investigate, to help, to stay." Olivia took his hand. "I wonder sometimes what the Garretts thought in those final moments before you shot them. If they realized that their cruelty had backfired, that trying to kill me led directly to their own deaths. Probably not. Men like that rarely see beyond their own desires and anger." Isaac squeezed her hand. "But I am glad you survived. Not just for me, though I am selfishly grateful, but because you have done so much good in this community. Think about all the families you have helped through the Benevolence Fund, all the children who have learned to read because you fought for that school. We have done those things, Olivia corrected. This has always been a partnership, Isaac. It has, he agreed. The best partnership I could have imagined. Jacob successfully roped the fence post, and Emma cheered loudly, jumping up and down. Isaac and Olivia watched their children with the particular contentment that comes from seeing your legacy developing before your eyes. I want more, Olivia said suddenly. Isaac looked at her in surprise. More what? More children, maybe. But I was thinking more broadly, more impact, more purpose. The school is wonderful and the Benevolence Fund helps, but there is so much need in this territory. Families struggling, women with no opportunities, children with no future. What are you thinking? Olivia's eyes sparkled with the intensity that always appeared when she had an idea. A training program, here at the ranch. We could take in young people, especially those from difficult situations, and teach them horse handling, ranch management, practical skills they could use to build better lives. We have the space, the resources, and the expertise. Isaac considered it. That would be a significant undertaking. More expense, more work, more people around constantly. I know. But remember what you said when you found me, that you had to be the kind of man who did not walk away when he could make a difference. This could make a real difference, Isaac. Not just for one person, but for dozens of young people over the years. He looked at his wife, still seeing the woman he had dug out of the sand, the one who worried about his safety even as she was dying. She had never lost that impulse to think of others, to put herself on the line for what was right. How could he do any less? All right, Isaac said. Let us do it. They started small, taking in 2 teenagers from difficult situations that first year. Tommy Miller, whose father had died in a mining accident, leaving the family destitute, and Maria Sanchez, whose parents had been killed by raiders, leaving her orphaned at 17. Isaac and Olivia taught them horse handling, basic ranching skills, and the business side of running a successful operation. Both teenagers thrived under their guidance. Tommy discovered a natural gift for training horses, while Maria showed surprising aptitude for the business aspects. At the end of a year, Tommy was hired by a ranch in northern Arizona at a good wage, able to support his mother and younger siblings. Maria chose to stay on at Palmer Ranch, becoming Olivia's assistant in managing the expanding training program. Word spread quickly. By 1893, Palmer Ranch Training Program had a waiting list. They typically had 4 to 6 young people living and working at the ranch at any given time, learning skills that would allow them to build independent, successful lives. The program required significant changes to the ranch. Isaac built a bunkhouse for the trainees, expanded the barn and corrals, and hired additional staff to handle the increased workload. Olivia developed a formal curriculum, teaching not just practical skills but also literacy, basic mathematics, and business principles. Jacob and Emma grew up surrounded by this constant flow of young people, learning early the values of hard work, compassion, and giving back to the community. Jacob, at 11, was already helping teach younger trainees basic horse handling. Emma, at 10, appointed herself the welcoming committee, making sure new arrivals felt included and valued. One afternoon in the spring of 1894, a familiar face appeared at the ranch. Sheriff Tom Baker, now in his 60s and planning to retire, rode up to the house with a young woman sitting behind him on his horse. She was maybe 18, with long brown hair and frightened eyes. "Isaac, Olivia," Tom said, dismounting. "This is Rachel Martin." She was traveling through with a wagon train when raiders attacked. Most of the party was killed. She managed to escape but has nowhere to go, no family. Olivia was already moving forward, her face compassionate. "You are safe now, Rachel. You are welcome here." Rachel burst into tears, the fear and trauma finally breaking through. Olivia held her while she cried, and Isaac saw in that moment the full circle they had traveled. Olivia, who had once been a victim saved by a stranger's intervention, now providing that same salvation to someone else. Over the following weeks, Rachel slowly came out of her shell. She had nightmares initially, crying out in the night. Olivia would sit with her during those episodes, sharing her own experience with the Garrett brothers, showing Rachel that survival was possible, that trauma did not have to define your future. "You did not just save my life that day in the desert," Olivia told Isaac one night. "You showed me what it meant to refuse to give up, to fight for someone who needed help. Now I can pass that forward, show Rachel and all the others that there are good people in this world, people worth trusting." "We pass it forward together," Isaac said. "Everything we have built, we built as partners." By 1895, Palmer Ranch Training Program had graduated over 20 young people, all of whom had gone on to successful lives. Several had started their own ranches or businesses. 2 had become teachers. One had even become a deputy sheriff, inspired by the stories of Sheriff Baker's career. The ranch itself continued to prosper. Palmer horses were now sought after throughout the West, known for their intelligence, temperament, and endurance. Isaac had developed innovative training techniques that other ranchers came to learn, and Olivia had written a small booklet on horse breeding that sold surprisingly well through the agricultural press. Jacob, now 13, was already talking about taking over the ranch someday. He had inherited his father's quiet competence and his mother's strategic mind, a combination that would serve him well. Emma, 12, was still deciding her path but showed interest in teaching, spending hours helping the younger trainees with their reading and writing. One evening in late summer, with the desert cooling from the day's heat, Isaac and Olivia took their usual walk around the property. It was their time to talk without interruption, to reconnect after the busy days of running the ranch and training program. "I got a letter from the territorial governor's office today," Olivia said as they walked. "They want to visit next month to see the training program for themselves. Apparently, there is talk of replicating it in other parts of the territory." Isaac whistled low. "That is significant. You have built something that could change how we handle orphans and struggling young people throughout Arizona territory." "We have built it," Olivia corrected automatically. "But yes, it is bigger than I imagined when I first suggested the idea." "Isaac, do you ever regret it?" "All the extra work, the constant people around, the loss of privacy." Isaac stopped walking and turned to face her. At 41, Olivia was still as beautiful to him as she had been at 24, though her face now showed the lines of experience and hard work. Her eyes still held that same fierce compassion that had made him fall in love with her. "Not for a single moment," Isaac said firmly. "This life we have built, the family we have raised, the young people we have helped. This is meaning, Olivia. This is purpose. Some men leave their mark through violence or accumulation of wealth. We are leaving ours through the lives we have touched, the people we have helped find their own strength." Olivia smiled, that radiant expression that still made Isaac's heart skip. "When did you become such a philosopher?" "When I married a woman who sees the potential in everyone and refuses to accept that anyone is beyond saving." "I learned that from you," Olivia said softly. "You saved me when I had given up on myself. You showed me that one person's choice to act with courage and compassion can change everything." They resumed walking, hands linked, comfortable in the silence that came from years of true partnership. The sun was nearly gone now, the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. From the bunkhouse came the sound of laughter, their current group of trainees finishing dinner and relaxing before bed. "I am pregnant again," Olivia said suddenly. Isaac stopped mid-step. "What? Are you certain?" Doc Miller confirmed it yesterday. "I know we were not planning this, and I am 41 now, which is old for pregnancy, but I wanted to tell you as soon as I was sure." 1,000 thoughts raced through Isaac's mind. The risks of pregnancy at Olivia's age, the fact that their children were already teenagers, the question of whether they wanted to start over with a baby after nearly 10 years. But underlying all those practical concerns was a deep, instinctive joy. "How do you feel about it?" Isaac asked carefully. "Terrified," Olivia admitted, "and happy. And worried about being too old to chase after a toddler, and excited to have another child to love, all of it at once. Then we will face it together, like we face everything else." Isaac pulled her into his arms, another Palmer joining the family. "Jacob and Emma will be excited once they get past the weirdness of their old parents having a baby." Olivia laughed against his chest. "We are not that old. Tell that to my back after a full day of ranch work." They stood there in the gathering darkness, holding each other, contemplating this unexpected addition to their lives. Around them, the ranch that had grown from nothing hummed with life and purpose. This was home, solid and real, built on a foundation of love and shared values. The pregnancy was indeed challenging. Olivia was sick more often than with her previous pregnancies, and Doc Miller insisted on weekly checkups. But she remained determined to stay active, continuing to run the training program with Maria's help, and refusing to be treated as fragile. Jacob and Emma's reactions were exactly as predicted. Initial shock, followed by adjustment, and finally, genuine excitement. Jacob immediately started planning ways to teach his new sibling about horses. Emma began collecting baby clothes from neighbors and friends, determined that her new brother or sister would be well dressed. The territorial governor's visit in September was a success. He spent 2 days at the ranch, touring the facilities, meeting the trainees, and discussing the program's structure with Olivia and Isaac. He left promising funding to help expand the program and to establish similar operations in 3 other parts of the territory. "You are changing Arizona," the governor told them at his departure. "Not through politics or force, but through practical compassion. This territory needs more people like you." After he left, Isaac and Olivia sat on their porch, exhausted but satisfied. "We are going to need more help," Olivia said, her hand resting on her growing belly. "If we are going to help set up 3 other programs while preparing for a baby and keeping our own operation running, we will hire more staff, maybe promote some of our graduated trainees to teaching positions. And we will accept that we cannot do everything ourselves." Isaac covered her hand with his. "How is the little one doing? Active? I swear this baby never stops moving." Olivia smiled. "I think we have another Emma on our hands." The baby arrived in March of 1896, 2 weeks early but healthy and strong. Another boy, this one with his mother's dark hair and his father's serious expression. They named him Daniel Henderson Palmer, continuing the tradition of honoring the family whose tragedy had brought Isaac and Olivia together. At 42, Olivia found caring for an infant exhausting in ways it had not been in her 20s. But she also found unexpected joy in it, the sweet simplicity of a baby's needs contrasting with the complexity of running a ranch and training program. Isaac, now 46, discovered he was more patient with a baby than he had been as a younger father. less worried about doing everything perfectly and more focused on simply being present. Jacob, now 14, was surprisingly gentle with his baby brother, often holding Daniel when Olivia needed a break. Emma, 13, was equally devoted, taking on many childcare duties with enthusiasm. The family pulled together to accommodate the new arrival, everyone contributing to make it work. The training program continued to expand. By 1897, Palmer Ranch was training 12 young people at a time, and 3 similar programs had been established in other parts of Arizona Territory, all based on the model Isaac and Olivia had developed. The territorial legislature had passed funding specifically for these programs, recognizing their value in reducing poverty and crime by giving struggling young people a path to success. Olivia found herself traveling occasionally to the other programs, consulting on curriculum and structure. Isaac stayed home during these trips, managing the ranch and caring for Daniel with help from Jacob and Emma. He did not mind the role reversal. It reminded him that their partnership was flexible, each of them stepping up when the other needed it. Daniel grew into a curious, energetic toddler, constantly getting into mischief and making everyone laugh. He adored his older siblings, following Jacob around the ranch whenever allowed and demanding that Emma read to him for hours. The age gap between the children might have been problematic in some families, but it worked for the Palmers, with Jacob and Emma naturally taking on some parenting responsibilities while still being allowed to be children themselves. One afternoon in the summer of 1898, Isaac was working in the barn when Rachel Martin appeared. She had graduated from the training program 4 years earlier and now owned a small but successful ranch about 20 miles south of Red Cloud. She dismounted quickly, her face glowing with news. "Mr. Palmer, I had to tell you and Mrs. Palmer in person. I am engaged to David Chen, Peter Chen's cousin. We are getting married in September." Isaac broke into a wide smile. "That is wonderful news, Rachel. Congratulations. Peter will be thrilled to have you as family. I would not be here to marry anyone if not for you and Mrs. Palmer. After what happened to my wagon train, I wanted to die. But you took me in, showed me that life could still be good, still be worth living. You gave me hope and skills and a future." Rachel's eyes filled with happy tears. "I want you both at the wedding if you will come. You are the closest thing to parents I have now." "We would be honored," Isaac said, touched by her words. Rachel's wedding in September was beautiful, held at the church in Red Cloud with most of the town attending. It was a reunion of sorts, with several other graduates of the training program there to celebrate with Rachel. Standing in the church, watching Rachel and David exchange vows, Isaac felt Olivia squeeze his hand. "Look at what we helped build," she whispered. "All these young people finding their way to good lives, starting families of their own." "You built it," Isaac whispered back. "I just provided support." "We built it together," Olivia insisted, the automatic correction that had become a running theme in their marriage. At the reception, Isaac and Olivia found themselves surrounded by former trainees, all wanting to share their successes and thank the couple who had made those successes possible. Tommy Miller had saved enough to buy his own ranch. Maria Sanchez had opened a business school for young women in Tucson. Others had become teachers, ranchers, shopkeepers, and one had even become a lawyer. "They are our legacy," Olivia said later that night, as they prepared for bed in the hotel room they had rented in Red Cloud. "More than the ranch, more than the horses. These young people we helped, who are now helping others in turn." Isaac nodded, pulling her close. "When I found you in that desert 14 years ago, I had no idea I was saving someone who would go on to save so many others." "You gave me a reason to keep fighting," Olivia said, And I have spent every day since trying to pay that forward to be for someone else what you were for me. We have lived a good life, Isaac said. A meaningful life. We have, and we are not done yet. The turn of the century came and went, marked by celebration throughout Red Cloud. The new century brought changes to the region. Arizona territory was growing, becoming more civilized and connected. Railroad lines expanded, bringing easier travel and commerce. Towns grew into cities. The wild frontier of Isaac's youth was fading into history. Palmer Ranch adapted with the times. Jacob, now 18 and a skilled horseman, began taking on more responsibilities, allowing Isaac to slow down slightly. Emma, 17, surprised everyone by announcing her intention to attend the new territorial college in Tucson, planning to study education formally before returning to expand the training program's academic curriculum. Daniel, now 4, was a constant source of joy and chaos, keeping everyone young with his endless energy and questions. He showed early signs of combining his father's quiet determination with his mother's compassionate heart, a combination that promised good things for his future. In the spring of 1901, Sheriff Tom Baker passed away peacefully in his sleep. The funeral was massive, with people coming from across the territory to honor the man who had kept the peace in Red Cloud for over 30 years. Isaac gave one of the eulogies, speaking of Tom's fairness, his courage, and his friendship. Tom Baker taught me that law enforcement was not about power or control, Isaac told the crowded church. It was about service, about protecting those who could not protect themselves, about standing between the innocent and those who would do them harm. He was a good man who made this territory better by his presence. We will miss him greatly. After the funeral, Isaac and Olivia visited Tom's grave, standing quietly in the small cemetery outside town. "He was there the day I brought you in," Isaac said. "He saw immediately how bad it was, and he made sure you got care. I think he knew even then that something special was beginning. He told me once, a few years ago, that saving me was the best thing you ever did," Olivia said. He said he had known a lot of lawmen who lost themselves in the violence and cynicism, but you stayed true to yourself, and meeting me was a big part of that. Tom was a wise man. They stood there a while longer, paying their respects to an old friend, then walked back to their wagon where Daniel waited with Maria. As they rode back to the ranch, Isaac reflected on how much had changed since that day he saw vultures circling in the desert. He had been alone then, purposeless beyond the next job. Now he had a family, a thriving ranch, and a legacy of young people helped toward better lives. That evening, with the family gathered around the dinner table, Jacob made an announcement. "I have been talking with Mr. Rodriguez from Phoenix. He wants to partner with Palmer Ranch to create a breeding program focused on horses for law enforcement. Sturdy, intelligent animals that can handle the demands of police and sheriff work." "That is an interesting idea," Isaac said. "What do you think the market would be?" "Growing. As towns become cities, they need mounted police. The territorial rangers are expanding, and the new century is going to need different kinds of horses than the old frontier did. I think we could develop a strong specialty business." Isaac looked at his son, seeing the man he was becoming. Jacob had good instincts and the education to back them up. "Then develop a proposal. Show me the numbers, the logistics, the market analysis. If it makes sense, we will do it." Jacob grinned, excited to have his idea taken seriously. Across the table, Emma was helping Daniel with his dinner, patiently showing him how to use his fork properly. She caught Isaac watching and smiled. "I am going to miss this when I go to Tucson in the fall." "We will miss you too," Olivia said, "but you need to follow your dreams. And you will be home for holidays and summers." "Besides," Emma added. "I am only going to learn everything I can so I can come back and make the training program even better. This is temporary." After dinner, after the children had gone to bed, Isaac and Olivia sat on their porch as they had countless nights before. The desert night was cool and clear, the stars brilliant overhead. From the bunkhouse came the quiet sounds of their current trainees settling in for the night. "I am 50 years old this year," Isaac said. "When did that happen?" Olivia laughed. "I am 47. We are getting old together just like we promised. Any regrets?" "Not a single one." "You," Isaac thought about it, really considered the question. He thought about the years before he found Olivia, the loneliness and aimlessness of that life. Then he thought about everything after, the love, the family, the purpose, the impact they had made together. "No regrets," he said firmly. "This has been the best life I could have imagined. Better than I deserved." "You deserve every bit of happiness we have built," Olivia said. She moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder the way she had done thousands of times over their 17 years together. "We both do." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from decades of knowing someone completely. The ranch around them hummed with life, with purpose, with the accumulated meaning of years of hard work and compassionate action. "You remember what I said to you in the desert?" Olivia asked quietly. "My last words before you dug me out. You told me to run, to save myself. You said the Garretts would kill me if I stayed. And you stayed anyway. You chose to stay, to fight, to save me." Olivia lifted her head to look at him. "Those words made you stay, but you made me want to live. You made me believe that maybe tomorrow could be better than today, that there was still beauty and goodness in the world." Isaac pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "You made me believe I could be more than just another drifter. You gave me a reason to put down roots, to build something lasting." "We built it together," Olivia said, the familiar refrain. "We did," Isaac agreed, "and we are still building it every day." The years continued to pass, each one adding depth to the life Isaac and Olivia had created. Jacob's partnership with Rodriguez proved successful, establishing Palmer Ranch as the premier source for law enforcement horses. Emma returned from college in 1905 with a teaching degree and immediately began expanding the academic component of the training program, developing a curriculum that prepared students not just for ranch work, but for any path they might choose. Daniel grew from a chaotic toddler into a thoughtful boy who showed interest in both horses and books, often reading while sitting in the barn. At 8 years old, he was already helping with the younger trainees, showing them basic riding skills with a patience that reminded Isaac of Olivia. In 1906, Arizona Territory officially recognized the Palmer Ranch Training Program as a model for youth development, authorizing expanded funding and establishing 6 new programs across the territory based on their curriculum. Olivia was invited to Phoenix to receive a commendation from the territorial governor, a ceremony that made her uncomfortable but proud. "I did not do this for recognition," she told Isaac on the train ride home. "I know. You did it because you saw people who needed help and you could not walk away. Just like I could not walk away that day in the desert, but that does not mean the recognition is not deserved." The ranch itself continued to prosper. By 1908, Palmer Ranch employed 15 people full-time and had trained over 100 young people through the program. Several of those graduates now worked for the ranch, creating a continuity of mission that ensured the program's values would continue. Jacob, at 26, had married Lucy Anderson, the daughter of a nearby rancher. They were expecting their first child in the fall, a grandchild that Isaac and Olivia awaited with eager anticipation. Emma, 25, was courting a teacher from Tucson named Robert Franklin, and wedding plans were underway. Daniel, now 12, was growing tall and serious, already showing the leadership qualities that would serve him well. One evening in the summer of 1908, the family gathered for dinner to celebrate Isaac's 57th birthday. It was a loud, chaotic affair, with Jacob and Lucy there, Emma and Robert, Daniel inviting several of his friends from the training program and various ranch hands who had become like family over the years. After the meal, after the cake and gifts and laughter, Isaac and Olivia found a quiet moment alone on the porch. The party continued inside, but they needed a break from the noise and celebration. 24 years, Olivia said, since you found me in the desert. The best 24 years of my life, Isaac replied. We have built something good here, Isaac. Not just the ranch or the training program, but a family, a community, a legacy of compassion and hard work. Olivia took his hand. Our grandchild will grow up knowing that their grandparents made a difference, that they chose to help people who needed it. Your grandchild, Isaac corrected with a smile. I am just the support crew, Olivia laughed, still trying that line after all these years. We built this together, Palmer. Every single piece of it. Jacob's daughter, Mary Elizabeth Palmer, arrived in November of 1908, a healthy baby with her grandmother's eyes and her grandfather's serious expression. Isaac held his granddaughter for the first time and felt his heart expand in ways he had not anticipated. This was continuity, the future extending beyond his own life. She is perfect, he told Jacob and Lucy. Absolutely perfect. Over the following years, the family continued to grow and evolve. Emma married Robert in 1909, and they settled in Red Cloud where Robert taught at the school, while Emma continued managing the academic side of the training program. Daniel, now a teenager, had developed a particular interest in veterinary medicine, often shadowing Doc Miller on his rounds. The Palmer Ranch training program celebrated its 15th anniversary in 1910 with a massive reunion. Over 70 former trainees attended, coming from across Arizona territory and beyond to share their success stories and thank Isaac and Olivia for the opportunities they had been given. It was a day of laughter and tears, of reconnecting with people whose lives had been fundamentally changed by the compassion and dedication of two people who refused to accept that anyone was beyond saving. Rachel Martin Chen, now the mother of 3, gave a speech at the reunion. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer saved my life, but more importantly, they showed me how to live. They taught me that tragedy does not have to define us, that we can choose courage and hope even when the world seems dark. Everything good in my life stems from the day I arrived at this ranch, broken and hopeless, and they chose to see my potential rather than my problems. Standing at the back of the crowd, Isaac felt Olivia's hand slip into his. They had heard variations of this story many times over the years, but it never got old. Each person they had helped represented a small victory against the cruelty and indifference that had almost killed Olivia in the desert. In 1911, Isaac was diagnosed with a heart condition. Doc Miller was gentle but honest. Isaac needed to slow down significantly, avoid stress, and prepare for a future where he could not do the physical labor he had always taken for granted. Isaac, at 60, struggled with the diagnosis. The ranch had been his purpose for so long that the idea of stepping back felt like a betrayal. The ranch is not just you, Olivia reminded him. It is Jacob and Emma and Daniel. It is all the people we have trained who now work here. It is a living thing that has grown beyond us. That is the point, Isaac. We built something that will outlast us. Reluctantly, Isaac accepted the limitations his health imposed. Jacob officially took over day-to-day operations of the ranch, with Isaac serving as an advisor and mentor. It was hard at first, watching others do work he had always done himself. But gradually, Isaac found unexpected freedom in the change. He had more time with Olivia, more time with his grandchildren, more time to simply enjoy the life they had built. Emma and Robert had twins in 1912, a boy and a girl they named Henry and Rose. Daniel, now 16, was accepted to a veterinary program in California, the first Palmer to leave Arizona territory for education. The family was growing, spreading out, establishing themselves in the world. Through it all, the training program continued. By 1913, Palmer Ranch had trained over 200 young people. The program had been replicated in 10 locations across Arizona territory and was being studied by educators in other territories as well. What had started as Olivia's idea to help a few struggling young people had become a movement, changing how society approached youth in crisis. One evening in the spring of 1914, Isaac and Olivia celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary. The family threw a party at the ranch, with generations of Palmers and former trainees attending. Isaac, now 63 and moving more slowly due to his heart condition, stood with Olivia, now 60, and looked around at the assembled crowd. 30 years ago, I married the woman I dug out of the desert, Isaac said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet gathering. I had no idea then that I was not just saving a life, but gaining a partner who would transform my entire existence. Olivia made me better. She gave me purpose, family, and a legacy I could never have built alone. Olivia squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. 30 years ago, I married the man who refused to walk away when he could have. The man who showed me that courage and compassion could exist in the same person. Isaac gave me a second chance at life, and I have spent every day since trying to be worthy of that gift. The party continued late into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling. Isaac tired early, his heart condition limiting his stamina, but he sat contentedly watching his family enjoy themselves. 3 generations of Palmers, all thriving, all connected by the foundation he and Olivia had laid. As the party wound down and guests departed, Isaac and Olivia found themselves alone on their porch once again. It was their place, their ritual, their sacred space for connection and reflection. I have been thinking about the future, Olivia said quietly, about what happens when we are gone. Morbid thoughts for an anniversary, Isaac said, but he understood. His heart condition was a constant reminder of mortality. Practical thoughts. The ranch will be fine. Jacob is more than capable. The training program has Maria and Emma to continue the mission. But I want to make sure the original purpose is not forgotten, that future generations understand why we started this. What do you have in mind? A formal foundation. Something that outlasts us, that ensures the training program continues even when we are not here to guide it. We could endow it with funds, establish a board, create structure that keeps it true to our original vision. Isaac considered this. It made sense, ensuring that their life's work would continue long after they were gone. Let us talk to Jacob and Emma tomorrow, make this a family decision. The Palmer Foundation was established in 1915, with a mission to provide training and opportunities to young people in crisis. Isaac and Olivia transferred ownership of the training program to the foundation, along with a significant portion of the ranch's assets to provide ongoing funding. Jacob, Emma, and Maria served on the founding board, with provisions for future Palmer generations to remain involved. Now it will last, Olivia said with satisfaction after the papers were signed. No matter what happens to us, the work continues. Isaac's health declined gradually over the following years. He had several minor heart episodes that left him weaker each time. By 1918, at 67, he was largely confined to the house and immediate surroundings, no longer able to ride or do physical work. It frustrated him, this limitation, but he tried to accept it with grace. Olivia, at 64, remained healthy and active, still heavily involved in the training program and foundation. She adapted their life to accommodate Isaac's limitations, ensuring he remained engaged and purposeful even when his body would not cooperate. Daniel returned from California in 1918 with his veterinary degree and a wife named Patricia Shaw, a fellow veterinary student he had met at school. They settled near the ranch, with Daniel establishing a practice that served the surrounding community while also providing medical care for Palmer Ranch's horses. One evening in the fall of 1919, Isaac and Olivia sat on their porch watching the sunset. Isaac was wrapped in blankets despite the warm weather, always cold now due to his poor circulation. But he was content, holding Olivia's hand, watching the sky turn gold and orange and purple. "I want you to know," Isaac said quietly, "that these past 35 years have been everything I never knew I wanted. You made my life meaningful, Olivia. You gave me love and purpose and a legacy I am proud of." "Do not talk like you are saying goodbye," Olivia said, her voice tight. "You are not going anywhere yet. I am not being morbid, just honest. I want you to know, while I still can, what you mean to me, what you have always meant to me." Olivia leaned against his shoulder, careful of his fragile state. "You saved my life in that desert. But more than that, you gave me a reason to want to be saved. You showed me that love and partnership and purpose could coexist, that a good life was possible even after tragedy. I would not trade a single day of these 35 years for anything." They sat together as the light faded, two people who had built a life of meaning from a chance encounter in the desert. Around them, the ranch hummed with activity, with life, with the accumulated good of decades of compassionate action. Isaac Palmer died peacefully in his sleep on a cold January night in 1920, with Olivia beside him. He was 68 years old, and he left behind a family who loved him, a ranch that prospered, and a training program that had changed hundreds of lives. His funeral was attended by over 300 people, including dozens of former trainees who credited him with their success. Jacob gave the eulogy, speaking of his father's quiet strength, his unwavering integrity, and his commitment to doing what was right regardless of personal cost. "My father taught me that a man's worth is not measured by what he accumulates, but by what he gives. He gave us everything: his time, his energy, his love, and his example. The world is better because Isaac Palmer walked through it." Olivia stood at the grave long after everyone else had left, staring at the fresh earth that covered her husband. 35 years of marriage, 35 years of partnership, of love, of shared purpose. The grief was overwhelming, a physical weight that made breathing difficult. But even through the pain, she felt gratitude. Isaac had given her a life worth living. He had saved her in that desert and then continued saving her every day after, with his love and support and unwavering belief in her capacity to make a difference. "I will keep going," she whispered to the grave. "I will keep the work alive, keep helping those young people who need it. You made me promise to live fully, and I will honor that promise." Olivia lived for another 12 years after Isaac's death, continuing to guide the Palmer Foundation and training program until her own health began to fail. She saw Jacob's daughter Mary grow up and marry, producing great-grandchildren. She attended Emma's twins' graduation from college. She watched Daniel build a thriving veterinary practice that served the entire region. The training program continued to expand under her guidance, By the time of her death in 1932, at age 77, the Palmer Foundation operated training facilities in 4 states, had graduated over 500 young people, and was recognized nationally as a model for youth development. Olivia Kane Palmer died surrounded by her children and grandchildren in the house she and Isaac had built together. Her last words spoken to Jacob were simple: "Tell them the story. Tell everyone the story of the man who refused to walk away, who chose courage and compassion when he could have chosen safety. Make sure they know that one person's choice to act can change the world." Olivia was buried beside Isaac in the Red Cloud Cemetery, under a shared headstone that reads simply, "Isaac and Olivia Palmer. They chose to stay." The Palmer Foundation thrived long after both founders were gone. Jacob ran it until his retirement in 1945, then passed it to Mary. The training program evolved with the times, adapting to changing social needs while maintaining the core mission of providing opportunities to young people in crisis. By the Foundation's 50th anniversary in 1965, it had helped over 2,000 young people build successful lives. Daniel Palmer, the youngest of Isaac and Olivia's children, lived until 1985, serving on the foundation board until his death at age 89. He often told the story of how his parents met, of the woman buried in the desert and the cowboy who refused to leave her to die. He made sure every generation of Palmers knew their family history, understood the foundation of compassion and courage on which their legacy was built. The Palmer Ranch itself continued to operate for nearly a century, eventually sold in 1995 when the last Palmer descendant to work it retired. But the land was purchased by the Palmer Foundation, which converted it into a residential training facility that continues operating to this day. Young people still come to that same desert location to learn skills, gain confidence, and discover their potential. In the main building of the Palmer Ranch Training Center, there is a museum dedicated to Isaac and Olivia Palmer. It contains photographs, documents, and artifacts from their lives. But the centerpiece is a painting commissioned in 1950 by Mary Palmer, based on her grandfather's description of that fateful day in 1884. The painting shows a young man kneeling in the desert sand, digging frantically with his bare hands. In the ground before him, a woman's head and shoulders are visible, her eyes open and hopeful despite her dire situation. The sky is vast and blue, with vultures circling overhead. The desert stretches endlessly in all directions, emphasizing the isolation and danger of the moment. Below the painting, a plaque reads, "June 1884. Isaac Palmer found Olivia Kane buried alive in the Arizona desert. Her last words were a plea for him to save himself and run. Instead, he chose to stay. That choice saved her life and changed hundreds more." Remember, one person's courage can transform the world. Every young person who enters the training program sees that painting, hears that story. They learn that they are part of a legacy that began with a cowboy who refused to walk away and a woman who survived the impossible. They learn that compassion and courage are choices, not accidents, and that those choices ripple forward through time in ways we cannot always predict. The Palmer Foundation still operates today, more than a century after Olivia first suggested the idea. It has adapted to modern times with technology and updated curricula, but the core mission remains unchanged. Provide opportunities, teach skills, and show young people in crisis that their lives have value and potential. And every year, on a hot day in June, staff and graduates of the program gather at the original site where Isaac found Olivia. They stand in the desert heat, remembering the beginning of it all, honoring the choice one man made to dig a dying woman out of the sand instead of protecting himself. They remember that love can grow from tragedy, that purpose can emerge from crisis, that two people, committed to doing good in the world, can create ripples of positive change that last for generations. They remember Isaac and Olivia Palmer, the cowboy and the woman he saved, who chose to build a life of meaning together, and in doing so created a legacy that would outlast them both by decades. And they remember that it all started with a simple choice: to stay instead of run, to dig instead of walk away, to fight instead of surrender. A choice that, on a hot desert day in 1884, changed not just two lives but hundreds more that followed. The desert wind blows across that site now, carrying whispers of the past. Somewhere in that wind are the echoes of Isaac's determination and Olivia's gratitude, the sound of shovels in sand and promises made and kept. The vultures that once circled are long gone, replaced by new life, new hope, new possibilities. And in the evening, when the sun sets over Arizona and paints the sky in those same shades of gold and orange and purple that Isaac and Olivia watched together for decades, you can almost see them there on their porch. Two people who loved deeply, worked hard, and chose compassion over indifference. Two people who proved that the best love stories are not about grand gestures but about daily choices to support, encourage, and build something meaningful together. Their bodies rest in the Red Cloud Cemetery, side by side as they chose to live. But their legacy lives on in every young person who finds hope at a Palmer Foundation training facility, in every life transformed by the opportunities they provide, in every person who hears their story and decides to make a similar choice, to stay when they could run, to help when they could ignore, to build when they could destroy. Isaac Palmer found a woman buried to her neck in desert sand. Her last words begged him to save himself. Instead, he chose to save her. And in saving her, he found his own salvation, his own purpose, his own meaning. They stayed together forever after, building a life of love and service that outlasted their mortal years. They proved that from the darkest moments can come the brightest futures. That two people committed to doing good can change the world. That love, real love, is not just about romance but about partnership, shared purpose, and the daily choice to support each other in building something bigger than yourself. Their story, that began with vultures circling and ended with hundreds of lives transformed, reminds us all that we face these same choices every day. Will we walk away or stay? Will we help or ignore? Will we choose courage or comfort? Isaac Palmer chose courage. Olivia Palmer chose gratitude and service. Together, they chose love and built a legacy that would echo through time. And every person who hears their story, who visits that museum, who graduates from that program, carries forward the same message. One person can make a difference. One choice can change everything. One moment of courage can create ripples of good that last for generations. This is the story of a cowboy who found a woman buried to her neck in desert sand. Her last words asked him to run, to save himself, to let her die alone. Instead, he stayed. And that choice, made on a hot June day in the Arizona Territory in 1884, created a love story for the ages and a legacy that continues to this day.